Welcome to RPG Book Club LongCast, the podcast where we play a little bitty bit of a biggie big video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
Oh, I'm Maddie Grace Webben.
And today we will be playing the prologue and episode 1 of Final Fantasy XIII-2. But before we get to all of that, guys, what are your top 5 favorite Pokemon?
Okay, so I prepared for the assignment. A long time ago, my friend Noelle, and it's going to be so hard for me to read my notes and talk about Noel from this game and not accidentally say Noelle, like it's the name of one of my best friends.
They're the same.
Anyway, what?
They're the same name. Who cares?
Yeah. But anyway, Noelle forced me to do this Pokemon ranking thing where you pits Pokemon against each other and you choose the one you like more and it spits out your favorite Pokemon in order. So I actually have recorded my top 36, but I'll just give you my top 5 because that would be ridiculous. So starting from number 5. Number 5 is Snorlax. He's a classic.
Hell yeah.
He's
what
a big boy. He sleeps. Number 4 is Sylveon. I'm homosexual.
Yeah, but you're cisgendered, so I'm a little confused.
Sylveon is also for cis gay men.
Okay.
Number 3 is Slowpoke, another classic. Number 2 and 1 are where my list gets a little weird. Number 2 is Mile.
Okay.
I mean, it's a good poke.
It is a good poke. I really like that
That's
poke.
the one whose head is a Venus flytrap, right?
Yeah, it's like it's got a thing coming out of its head that's a giant mouth.
Yeah, it's a good one.
And number 1 is Girafarig.
Ooh, I like Girafarig.
It's such a good poke. He's so weird looking. It's normal psychic type. That's a weird combo.
I'm blanking on what my 5th one will be. But
just say Charizard.
It's not Charizard though. All right, so I'll start in these are in no particular order because I did not prepare for this assignment. So I love Absol. Like I always thought that he was awesome.
You do.
Which one's Absol?
Absol's the emo punk.
Oh,
Pokemon.
That's a good one. Of course, you would like that one.
Yeah, it's the wolf with one horn and one emo bang. Yeah, he's great. I always thought that he was kick-ass because I loved him, and then he has his own like Pokemon movie. So I'm like, obviously he's like a legendary, and they're like, no, we needed a filler for Route 22. So that's all Absol is. But I love him. And then another great one is Haxorus, or Oninox as I've met him, because I was taking Japanese 1 and Pokemon Black and White was coming out, so I got it in Japanese, and that game is still probably the best Pokemon game because it takes away all of your fun toys and it makes you experience playing Pokemon for the first time again. And Black and White.
Oh yeah.
And so I was rediscovering Pokemon for the first time again in a language I barely could understand anything going on, and so all of the names were bonkers and wild and just great. And when I saw Haxorus, I did not have I could not tell that it was a dragon and that this was the dragon of the area. I thought it was an answer to Scyther at first, and I was like, oh wow, he's pretty great. And then I got him, I was like, oh no, he's fucking phenomenal. And I like sung his praises forever. I'm like, guys, this is going to be the best one. I'm fucking excited for it. And 6 months later, everyone agreed that everyone really likes Haxorus. My requisite starter for my list is Feraligatr. I love him. And in the Game Boy Color games, I imagine he's like this like super fast looking like fighter alligator, but as they've gone on, he's like a chubby dude, and like same. I get it. He's let himself go when he reached the third dimension, and I love Feraligatr so much. My requisite evolution on the list is Jolteon. It's super fast. It's super spiky. I really like it. And then I couldn't think of my last one, and so I don't think this is actually top 5, but I kept thinking about it, and it's probably close. But Decidueye, just because
That's a good one.
it looks really fucking cool, and like Pokemon are about 90% aesthetics, anyways. So
Yeah.
he's honorarily number 5. Don't hold me to it if later down the line I pick Lapras or something instead.
That list is so incredibly you.
I know,
Yeah.
God, you have just. I can't even say you have the worst taste, because your taste is 100% consistent. Like, you have perfect taste based on the specific way that you look at the world, which is insane, and I don't understand it. But it's so consistent. It's just like, no, yeah, that's. It's like how, you know, it was like action buttons like Manifesto. It's like, these are the top 25 games of all time, according to our very specific definition of like what a good game is. And we're not even saying other games aren't good. We're just like saying step into our world where this is what makes a good game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like in Sam's world, those are the best 5 Pokemon.
Yeah.
In Sam's world. Anyway, my top 5, and I gotta give the disclaimer here that I'm a total Pokemon non-expert. I'm not one of those weirdos who's like, if it's not Gen 1, it didn't happen. But I am like, if it's not Gen 1 or 2, I probably didn't beat the game. Because I have problems with Pokemon's design, and I usually go about halfway through. And I also am a diehard where I, you know, it's really exciting to see Pokemon evolve. Like, part of the fun of Pokemon is learning about the world and seeing all the fun critters. So, like, if I never get to the third level, the third form of a certain Pokemon, I'm not going to look it up, so I don't know what it is. Unless it just, like, shows up in Super Smash Bros. Or something. So anyway, my top 5s, also in no order. Those of y'all real heads out there know that one of my all-time favorite pokes is Dunsparce from Gen 2.
Love Dunsparce.
Love
He's just a weird little freak. I don't know what the fuck he is or supposed to be. And he's great, and I love that for him.
I guess he's some sort of Tsuchinoko, but he has little wings.
Yeah, kind of. I don't fucking know, man. I don't know. And it's not even a very good Pokemon. It's just some weird little grub. He's great. Shout out to Dunsparce. Second of all, we got, this one's a little bit more normie. Honedge. Bruh, he's a sword who's also a ghost. What's cooler than that? Also, from a typing standpoint, Ghost Steel is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Honedge. Number 3, I've actually been scrolling through the gens that aren't Gen 1 or 2 to remind myself of what the pokes are and hopefully spark my memory. Like, oh yeah, that's a really good one, right? Boy, oh boy, do I love a lowland executor.
Yes.
Just what a tall, what a stupid friend. What a stupid fucking idiot Pokemon. I respect the designers for being like, all right, like they got a little fun with it, right? They're like, how do we make this one different? Hey, what if we made it just so tall that it looks fucking absurd? And so everyone was just like, yeah, that's what we're doing. Let's go for it. Let's do it. Oh no, what was the other one? I didn't want to forget it. Anyway, so that's 3 that I've said so far. 4, this is very simple, but I love my sweet lad, Sandshrew.
Sandshrew is so good.
Sandshrew is just... I don't have much to say about him. I mean, he's ground type. He evolves into Sandslash. If I recall, he's extremely fast and is pretty good in general. I'm generally weak against, in Pokemon games, like anything of like the rodent variety. They're just cute little buddies. So anyway, next I gotta go with speaking of the rodent family, I gotta go with oh no, what is this the first evolution or second evolution? Is Sintret the first one or the second one?
Sintret is the first one.
Yeah.
Furret is the second one.
Hold on, let me look these up to find out which one I like.
Wait.
Furret is the long boy. Sintret is the...
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I love both Sintret and Furret, but if I had to pick one, I'll say I'm going to go with Furret. Again, love those little guys. And then finally, I need one more. There's a lot of going from later gens. No.
Pikachu.
I was considering saying Pikachu as a joke.
It's a good Pokemon.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna have to go with Snorlax. Snorlax is such a fucking awesome Pokemon. Like, come on, come on, Jack, come on, man.
You gotta be careful saying "come on, Jack." Your dog might think you want to go for a walk.
Poplio.
Poplio's really good.
Poplio fucking rules. There we go. There's my 5.
There were people that were anti-Poplio, and I was anti those people.
Oh wait, one more. Hold on. I had to scroll through to remind myself of what the Pokemon were. 5 is Shuckle.
Shuckle, good.
That's a very you Pokemon to like.
Gen 2 is just like out the butt with like weird little freaks. Just little
Girafarig is Gen 2, right?
Just little dumbasses who you're like, what is this? What are you? I don't understand. And Gen 2's like, who cares? Here's a little, like, Gen 1's like, oh, every Pokemon is like an animal or like a type of guy, right? Like with Jinx and Mr. Mime or the Chams, right? And then later ones are like, oh, this is like a space alien or it's like an abstract concept. Gen 2's just like, I don't know, man. We just do this little guy. He's kind of like a turtle, but not really.
So I just thought of 2 more honorable mentions for my list, and it's Gardevoir and Infernape. And I realized
I love both of those Pokemon so much.
I just realized my whole list could just be Digimon. They're like Ken Sugimori designed a Digimon.
Those are all Digimon.
If we're doing honorable mentions, I've got to give a shout out to Nidoking. Because Nidoking and / Nidoqueen, because they're the same Pokemon. But they're great. And in Gen 1, if you're doing any sort of challenge run, you want to get Nidoran and evolve it because they fucking rule.
Yeah, 100%. Also, I just want to shout out to make a point that we should not explain why this is our theme this week.
Okay.
Because it would actually be a spoiler.
Sure enough.
Well, I suppose so.
So, speaking of spoilers, let's spoil some of this music.
So if you're wondering why we did our top 5 Pokemon, you'll find out next time.
Yeah. So, speaking of spoiling things, let's spoil some music from Final Fantasy XIII-2 and then talk about the plot.
The music in this game is so good.
It's really good.
Can you honestly tell me what happened this week? I don't know. I played it, but I have no idea what's really going on yet.
So first, saying the music was so good reminded me of some absolute psycho behavior I saw on the internet. Okay. So I was looking up Final Fantasy XIII-2 tips because I'd heard the mechanics of this game are a little weird. We haven't really gotten there yet, but I looked up a tips thing. I found one from 2012 on Kotaku. And one of the tips was turn down the music, and it had the entirety of that tip was just a link to the crazy Chocobo metal theme or whatever it is. And someone in the comments was like, what's wrong with you? The music in this game is great, and that song is supposed to be silly, and it's okay for music to be silly. And then someone else responded to them with Like, if it's Final Fantasy and it's not music by Nobuo Uematsu, it's shit. I hated the music in Final Fantasy 13. I'll hate the music in Final Fantasy 13 too. And just people were going on like that, and not exactly that, but just people having melted brains about.
It's so annoying.
If it sounds good and it scratches that part of your brain, it's good music. That's why I think that Grant Kirkhope makes good music, and why Maddie thinks he doesn't, because it doesn't scratch that part of Maddie's brain. I agree that he does weird ass accidentals and key signatures, but I like it. Therefore, it's good.
I'd say a lot of his music sounds accidental.
Yeah, it sounds like he was holding he was like doing like the one-man band thing, and then he tripped down a very long flight of stairs. But anyway, no, this music's game rules. This music's game, honestly, this music's game. The soundtrack, they actually made a game for it. It's really good.
A really interesting concept for an album to build a game around it. I think Radiohead did something like that recently.
Yeah, it's like, buddy, you heard of music videos? How about music games, bitch? But I will say though, actually, Radiohead did do that. I will say, so the previous game was entirely composed by the absolute king, Masashi Hamauzu. But I think Masashi Hamauzu must have, after making that game, which is maybe his greatest work. I don't know. It's a very particular sound that is not exactly the sound of the rest of his work, and I used to not like it as much, but now I realize it actually rules. Anyway, not only is it maybe his greatest work, it's so rich, so complex, it's so elaborate, it's so deep and nuanced. It also is like 6 fucking hours long. And then this game, they're like, hey, we're making Final Fantasy 13 2. We're making it in literally 18 months. You want to write 6 more hours of music? And he was like, no. That's insane. I will literally die if I have to do this. So they brought in like 2 or even 3 other composers. So this game's composed by a team, though you can tell which ones Hamauzu did, unless the other people are doing an impersonation of his style, because if that's the case, then I guess you wouldn't know. But some of them are definitely by him, and then there's also a bunch of other weird bullshit. It's great.
Yeah, I love the music in this game.
The other composers are Mitsuto Suzuki, who apparently has composed Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 13 adjacent works, but the other guy, Naoshi Mizuta, is the Final Fantasy 11 composer.
Yep.
And he's done Final Fantasy 11 related stuff.
Oh, also, to back up, I'm sorry, Final Fantasy fans, Nobuo Uematsu, and it pains my heart to say this, but like honestly, mid.
Yeah,
he's mid.
I really like his loops, and I really like his I'm just going to throw some prog rock at this final boss stuff, and the rest of it is pretty good.
He's simultaneously a world-class genius and a mid-tier composer.
Yeah.
Get over it.
I will say all of his loops though, like he manages to make like 16 bars feel like 49 minutes of music on the Super NES.
Yeah, he does a good job taking you through like a journey in the course of one track. And again, I say this with all respect for the goofy little guy.
I will say maybe it's easy to over praise Uematsu because he's composed so much music. He has an outsized number of masterpieces under his belt.
Mm-hmm.
Like he did so many games with such huge soundtracks. He has a lot of memorable ones, even though if on average he's not as amazing as like Hamauzu or another one.
That being said, my favorite track of his is starting at the beginning of the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack and listening all the way until the end of the Final Fantasy VIII soundtrack.
No,
yes.
FF8 is one of the greatest game soundtracks of all time, and it's not close. And I would say that's the one game where Uematsu not only is making great music, but is making music that is like that is also, it's not just his best work, it's also his most quintessentially Uematsu work, if that makes any sense at all.
And of course, making one of the best game soundtracks of all time does not mean you are the best composer of all time, because Koji Kondo did Super Mario 64. But he also did a lot of bullshit.
Also extremely mid. Significantly more mid than Uematsu. Like, Koji Kondo's like he's just normal most of the time. But yeah, he composed Mario 64 OST, which is like, yowza.
Yeah, like with Mario Galaxy, you have whatever the famous song is on Mario Galaxy Gardens or whatever. Like, that song's good. I could not hum an entire other song from all of Mario Galaxy.
Song would have been better. You know what? That song would have been better if it was written by Masashi Hamauzu.
It's true.
And for the record, I'm not just saying that because I love Hamauzu. I'm saying he's got a specific style, and that's what his style is.
Yeah.
Like, he would have nailed that song.
Absolutely.
My hot take is that Hamauzu needs to be the new composer for the Kirby series.
Yes. Oh, that'd be great.
I'd be down.
Oh, actually, okay. You know what? Okay, let's not talk about it this week because we need to actually start talking. But you know what we should do for next week? For our gimmick, we should do what your pick would be for who should be the new composer for Dragon Quest.
That's so hard, though.
Me and Bernard have talked about this, and it's interesting, but it's way too big a can of worms. So let's do it for next week.
Okay, I'm down with that being our top 5, being a top 1.
Koji Kondo.
Or maybe we could pick a top 5 people to replace, so we don't have to pick between our favorites.
Anyway, let's start. Ask me again if I can tell you what happened.
Bernard, can you tell me what happened in this video game?
I can try. So we hear Lightning's badass voice. She says, "That time was lost, yet time continued onward. Divine Etro, go peacefully to your rest. I will stand guard over your legacy." She kneels before a throne, and she's wearing a cool new outfit that, has armor and stuff. This endless realm is awash with sadness. Life and death lose all meaning under the rolling waves of chaos. Valhalla, the currents of time do not touch its shores. We see some Kingdom Hearts looking dude doing a Kingdom Hearts fall through an abstract space. In this world of lost moments.
In this world
of lost moments, I begin my life anew. We see an extremely anime man carry a woman's body into the ocean. As he lays her to rest, he says, "This eternity, it was never your desire. Is that not so, Yule?" His voice is immediately recognizable as the absolute all-time great Liam O'Brien, who voiced Grimoire Weiss in Nier.
That's right.
The lady, who I guess is named Yule, disappears, and Grimoire Weiss has some quick flashbacks. A bunch of winged things fly up out of the ocean and fly towards the tower that Lightning is standing on the balcony of. Lightning has her own winged things, and they fly to battle against Grimoire Weiss's winged things. Grimoire Weiss is like, "Warrior goddess, now we cross swords." Grimoire Weiss fights a bunch of Lightning's monsters, and the Shiva sisters make an appearance. He fights them off. Lightning rides in on Odin, but Grimoire Weiss summons, quote, "the husk of the wandering comet," unquote. A portal opens in the sky, and some enormous mass starts to emerge from it. Meteors fall on the battlefield. Lightning leaps at Grimoire Weiss and calls him Caius Ballad. She knocks him into the portal, and it shatters, causing the things emerging from it to disappear. Caius and Lightning both land tough guy style. They do a sword fight. Caius grabs the blade of Lightning's sword and points it at his chest, which starts glowing red. Lightning's like, "Oh no." He calls forth the Eidolon Chaos Bahamut. We go into in-game graphics, which is kind of jarring, and a tutorial fight. Lightning hops on Odin and fights Chaos Bahamut for a while. Then I guess their Gestalt gauges or whatever run out, and Lightning and Caius fight on foot again. The game reveals it's added everyone's favorite feature, QuickTime events. Lightning gets the upper hand for a moment, and Caius says the goddess made a wise choice. He then calls on the forces of chaos to bend to his will, which doesn't sound like a very chaotic thing to do.
No.
Lightning accuses him of wanting to destroy everything. He says oblivion is the fate of all things. They fight some more, and Caius says that in these final moments, he's met his finest opponent. Lightning owns Caius, and he ends up getting buried beneath a bunch of rubble. He's definitely actually dead. The sky above the tower glows in the distance, and Lightning's like, gasp, Etro's gate. Of course, the one from the vision. The dude who was falling earlier floats out of the light. I know your name, Noel Christ. Lightning summons some flying eidolon thing and flies up to save Noel as he starts to fall. But Chaos Bahamut shows up again. Lightning catches Noel and tells him he's in Valhalla. He prayed for a miracle, and that brought him here. She says from Valhalla she can see everything. She introduces herself as Lightning. She fights Chaos Bahamut again, and then she and Noel jump down onto the tower. Noel asks how they can fight Caius. Lightning says this is not his battle. There's something else she needs him to do. She tells him to bring her sister Sarah to her. Lightning says he'll need to use the portal, and his time-gazing friend should have told him how it works. Noel's like, why me? Lightning says he's the only one who can. You crossed the void and made it to Valhalla. You can find Sarah, and together you can change the future. Lightning summons a Moogle, and it turns into a bow?
Mm-hmm.
She says to give it to Sarah as a good luck charm. Noel agrees to find her. Caius shows up, and Lightning tells Noel to get going. As Noel dives into the portal, a lot of graphics happen, and Caius appears to destroy Valhalla. Lightning's voice says, My hopes go with you, Noel Christ. Become an arrow through time and speed your way to Sarah. Be there for her, because I no longer can. I feel like my Solid Snake impression is not as good this time around, but that's because I'm doing it in a way that doesn't destroy my throat.
Well, that's acceptable.
It's a lot more MGS1 than MGS4.
Mm-hmm.
The scene shifts, and we get a different voiceover from Lightning. Time flows without pause. In a world where I no longer exist, the future is about to change. Sarah, the truth still survives, but only you remember it. We see a seaside town that looks sort of like Bodom. Some weird crystal mass falls from the sky. We see Sarah half asleep, waking from a dream about Lightning fighting Caius. Weird time shit appears around her.
I want to mention here. In the previous game, everything was very like FF13 had a very very this is a very hard sentence to say. Had a very consistent aesthetic identity. It did actually. FF13 has a coherent aesthetic. I don't know what the fuck it is or what anything in it is, but it does all look like it's from the same game, even if I don't know what the fuck it is in that outside of that context. But what I mean is, like, it has all this crystal-y shit. It's got all this weird wishy-washy shit, but most of it has a lot of blues, a lot of like icy blues, and certain ways that it's like energy and crystals look. I think it's important for me to bring up that to me it was very striking that the weird like energy that comes out of the meteor and then like goes at Sarah or whatever looks completely different from any of that. First of all, it's red, and second of all, just like in general, the magic-y shit that we see in this game does not really have an aesthetic congruency with the previous game. So it's clear that we're like kind of in uncharted waters here. We're not doing like Lassie, Falsy, all that shit. We're on to some other bullshit.
Yeah, I don't believe the words Lassie and Falsy. Wait, no. I think the word Falsy was spoken once.
Yeah, no, they're very minor though. Yeah, and I think that the game very clearly through its word choices, through its insane intro, through its visuals, shows that like buckle up because what you learned in the previous game no longer applies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the crystal mass crashes outside town and Sarah wakes up. She's confused to find that her clothes have changed magical girl style. As she steps outside to investigate, time shit erupts from her and she has a weird hallucination of a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Then she's back in the present, a moment frozen in time. She sees Final Fantasy XIII's B characters fighting monsters. Then time resumes. The B team calls for Sarah and everyone else to run away. We see some sort of Titan thing reaching through a portal of some sort. I don't think it's really resolved in this scene what happens with that, but we do fight it later. A monster appears in front of Sarah. She falls and cries for lightning to help her. LeBro shoots the monster, and we all remember LeBro, everyone's favorite Final Fantasy XIII character.
Yeah, remember last game when we were like, man, they're really trying hard to make us care about these people that are definitely not important, and we definitely don't care about them. 13-2 was like, we're going to try that again.
And it's still not going to work.
It still did not work.
LeBro shoots the monster and yells at Sarah to get a hold of yourself. Lightning can't protect you anymore. Your sister is dead. And so on. LeBro gets owned by a monster. But then Noel makes a tough guy entrance and kills the monster. Sarah recognizes him from her dream. Noel gives her the bow and tells her to fight. We enter our first normal battle. Sarah can use magic despite definitely not being a Lassie anymore.
Yeah, so we have not yet had an explanation of why the characters can use magic, but I want to believe that this is not some oversight, that it's not like, oh, we forgot that Lassie is why they could use magic before, but there's some other bullshit going on. But yeah, and that's not a distinction made in this game.
My headcanon, until it gets disproved, is what if the Fal'Cie, instead of giving magic to the Lassie, everyone could have used magic because they're in Final Fantasy, but the Fal'Cie stopped it so that everyone could be cogs in their machine. But then when they needed to use people, they gave it back to them.
That's pretty good, and it's not disproven by the NPC dialogue I'm about to bring up. This is actually later in my notes, but later in the game, I talked to LeBro, and just as an NPC, and she mentioned, things sure have changed since Cocoon fell. Some people, like Sarah here, have even learned how to use magic. And I'm like, I hope we get more explanation than that.
Probably won't.
Probably won't.
Yeah, I think it's just like, we're past the world has changed. We're in a new era now. Things don't follow the same rules they did before. People can use magic, whatever.
Yeah. God is dead and we can use magic.
Yeah.
That's right.
So Sarah and Noel fight off a bunch of monsters. Once they're all gone, the B team forms a party to investigate the meteorite that crashed outside of town. Noel and Sarah bring the unconscious LeBro next to Sarah's house and just put her on the ground instead of bringing her inside and putting her on a bed, of which there are a few in the house. Noel says she'll be fine. She just needs to rest on the ground. Apparently.
It's fine.
Also, I hate seeing people in beds in video games because the bed is always like too long for them and they don't use a pillow and it bothers me. This happened earlier in the game when Sarah was sleeping. She wasn't using a pillow and she was fully dressed and the bed didn't look correctly proportioned for her.
Yeah, and they hadn't invented the Last of Us 2 fabric stuff yet, so when they lay on beds, it is a concrete slab of which they are floating an inch above.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, Sarah's bow turns into its Moogle form. She doesn't seem surprised by the transformation, but she assumes the Moogle is a toy, because Moogles aren't real. Noel says the Moogle is Sarah's lucky charm from Lightning. Sarah asks where he saw her. Was it Valhalla? Sarah reveals that she saw the whole opening in her dream. I wonder if she had to do the QuickTime events.
Yeah. Or did she just accidentally watch it as the attract mode and then hit start and then have to sit through it again?
So I do think that she would not be as confused about any of this if she'd literally seen everything. Like if we were seeing her dream. I think what we, the player, were seeing was an actual thing that happened. And then Sarah had a dream that vaguely alluded to that. Like, she had a dream where she, in a much more obscure way, saw what we saw. Because if she literally, if that FMV had been playing in her brain while sleeping, she would be a lot less confused.
Or even if she saw the whole opening like we did, now she's awake and brains just aren't good at remembering what happened in a dream.
That's also true. That's also true. Good
even
point.
if it's really important and like dramatic, often we can't remember what happens in a dream.
Yeah.
So they hypothesize that when the meteorite came, it dragged Noel with it, but Noel can't remember because he's not a JRPG protagonist with amnesia, but he almost is. Yeah. He's just not good at memories.
I don't know why this is a plot point, because he remembers everything important. Like, it would be old hat, but potentially interesting if he's like, yeah, so Lightning told me to meet you, and that's the only thing that I remember. I don't remember Jack shit else. But he's like, no, I remember the future and going in Valhalla and doing all this stuff. I just don't remember where I parked my car.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's kind of like how in the previous game, Fong could remember most of her like childhood and adulthood and life, but she couldn't remember the specifically very important plot events involving her completing her focus.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it was like, for Noel, it's like, he's in some weird place, and Lightning says go do a thing, he's like, okay, and then he's like, yeah, and now I'm here, I don't know, man.
Maybe he's just forgetful.
Maybe he just wasn't paying attention. He was kind of spacing out at the time.
Yeah. Anyway, Noel suggests they go check out the meteorite. We hear Sarah voiceovers saying now she knows Lightning is alive. She remembered how happy they were when Lightning gave her blessing for Sarah and Snow to get married. I probably could have arranged the pronouns in that sentence a bit better. But no one else remembers that and says it was a dream from when she slept in the crystal. They say Lightning is gone, that 3 years ago she sacrificed herself to stop the fall of Cocoon. She turned into the crystal pillar that holds Cocoon above Pulse.
For those of y'all listening who may have forgotten, that's not what happened at the end of Final Fantasy XIII.
Yeah, I think this is an interesting setup for a game, just saying like, okay, in the sequel, the main character of the game is the only one who remembers the game ending the way you remember it.
Yeah,
and everyone else has a different idea of what happened.
It's a great little rug pull. It automatically brings up the issue of like, so did something change, or is what we saw in the previous game just Sarah's incorrect memories, right? Like, I don't think that's what it is, but I like that it suggests that. Nah, it's really cool. Also, I don't know if y'all did, but I read all of the, in the main menu, the recap of the previous game, and I'll bring that up later, because it sheds a little bit of light.
I can't believe something buried in a menu sheds light about the plot of Final Fantasy XIII.
Right? I forgot to do data log this time. Though, I think I made up for it by looking at the recaps.
Yeah. This plot point of no one agrees on the ending of the last game reminded me of Gideon the Ninth and Harrow the Ninth that I recently read, and I loved it in that book where the narrator character doesn't agree with what I, Sam Allman, remember and can prove happened in the end of the last book. And so it's this big, like, what the fuck is even real for all of the second book. And it's really cool. And it's kind of the same shit here, which
it's also exciting. A very forgotten movie that I thought was really good, actually, that even though no one seemed to have seen it or talked about it. Remember how for a while doing like adults, like CG movies for adults was a thing, like they did, or not like for adults, but just like not like Pixar. So they obviously there was like the Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which was like a total flop, but like they still made it. And then later they're like, oh, we're gonna do like the Polar Express or whatever, and like eventually that stopped being a fad, but it was kind of a thing for a while. Anyway, they made Beowulf,
Oh yeah,
which stars Angelina Jolie as the hot MILF villain. But that movie does a weird thing where, in retrospect, they're kind of doing the cheesy thing that a lot of kids' movies do, where it's like, everyone knows the story of Princess and the Pea, but that story is not how it really went. And then we're launching into some kind of like fucking, DreamWorks like hip reimagining of the story where it's actually different. That's what Beowulf is, but they don't tell you that going in. You're just watching the story, the normal story of Beowulf. But then when it gets to the dramatic part at the end, towards the end, where the character Beowulf has to make an important decision, he makes the opposite decision that he makes in the actual Legend of Beowulf.
And this leads into Beowulf Builders.
Yes. And then the last act of the movie is catastrophic consequences of his bad decision, and then the characters all save the day by the end, and they barely manage to make it out, and then they all decide that in order to protect Beowulf's honor, they're gonna lie and say it went differently.
Neat.
Right? It's actually pretty cool. So it's not till the end that you realize that you're seeing a revisionist history of the Beowulf myth, in which the Beowulf myth that we know is a fiction. It's quite cool.
That's cool.
It's not actually a particularly good movie, but I gotta respect that.
Yeah.
Also, Angelina Jolie being in it and being really hot.
Anyway, on the way to the meteorite, Sarah asks Noel what his deal is. He says he's a hunter, and in his era, if you don't hunt, you don't eat. Sarah takes the idea that he's from a different time in stride. I wonder if instead of era, she heard, like, area.
Yeah. Okay, so I want to make one more thing. In this game, one of the new mechanics is one of the major new mechanics is the game added a lot to its systems. They really built the game. They really built the game's engine out in a lot of ways. And one way they built it out is that during walking around now, there will often be these QTEs. Okay, there's QTEs during cutscenes in battle, but these are like basically dialogue options. And a lot of the time, you get 4 different dialogue options, and that's kind of cool, because that means we're going to learn slightly different information from these dialogue options. You just get a bunch of them. So you get to ask Noel, like, various things about what his deal is, and you just vaguely pick things up. From mine, it became pretty clear, I don't know about y'all, but from whatever choice I picked, it became clear that he was from Pulse. And, like, Pulse where, people aren't, there are humans who live on Pulse. And because of that, Sarah kind of immediately, like, she does reference, she doesn't take it in stride. She's actually like, wait a second, what the hell does that mean? You're from some kind of different dimension or something like that. I wanted to mention the mechanical aspect of all these conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I don't know if you pick the right one or something, but you get rewards depending on what you
really
picked.
Oh, I never did that. I guess I picked the wrong time.
Well, it's the, I'm sure you saw the treasure chests just like beam themselves down into your bedroom after
very dramatically. And
I didn't know that was why that happened.
Yeah, when you hover over it, it calls it your live event reward or whatever.
When you pick it up, it says in big letters over the center of the screen, live event reward.
I must have missed the word reward, or at least didn't get that I was being rewarded for the thing I had done earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it just kind of happened. It's FF13, man. You can't blame me for assuming something just kind of happened.
That's true.
Yeah. They show up with the same fanfare that random battles do, and so every single time it would happen, I would run out of the room and be like, oh, it was probably treasure chest. Let me go back and check it.
As Sarah and Noel close in on the meteorite, weird time shit starts happening again. When they get close, Cocoon disappears, and the portal titan thing appears. Sarah and Noel defeat it and obtain a fragment.
Cool.
And let me read to you.
Fragment because of the UI that tells you it's a fragment.
Yes, I'm going to read what the UI says about fragments. By resolving the anomalies along the timeline, you will obtain special objects known as fragments. Fragments are memories of time, solidified into shards, each containing a valuable piece of knowledge or slice of history. To view which fragments you currently possess, press Y to access the main menu and select Fragments. There are 160 fragments hidden in the world. Total fragments can tell you how many of them you have discovered.
So,
Sarah?
I
Yes.
am completely FF13 pilled.
Yes.
I love how
This idiotic
like
shit rules.
alluding to the fact that like this is going to be a time hopping adventure, but the characters at this point think they're about to walk through the door and go back to Valhalla. They don't know that they're about to go through the timeline, but the UI is like, hey, guess what? You're taking the long way around, buddy.
I have a lot of thoughts that I think I might have to bring up later during Mim Moms about this game's understanding of when characters do or do not have access to specific bits of information.
Mm-hmm. So Sarah and Noel approach the meteorite and see the wasteland from before. Sarah asks where that is and why Cocoon isn't there. Noel says they're looking into his time when Cocoon didn't exist. When he was born, the sky was already empty. He asks Sarah how long it's been since Ragnarok appeared and Cocoon fell. Sarah says it's 3 AF, so it was 3 years ago. Noel reveals he's from 700 years in the future. He's the last of humanity. It feels a little weird that he reveals that he's the last of humanity now. I don't know. Maybe it's weird for me to think this, but I sort of think like when he would have introduced himself, he'd be like, "Hi, I'm Noel, your sister, who's alive, sent me to find you. I'm the last of humanity."
Yeah, he doesn't do a great job of using the information that he does have to explain to others what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an incredibly passive deuteragonist by the fact that he comes from the fucking future and has a time-gazing friend who can tell him all about it and all of these things. And he just shows up. He's like, I don't know, let's just walk over there and see what happens, I guess.
Like, what's the point of being from the future if you can't just roll up like fucking Trunks and be like, hi, I'm from the future. Here's the plot of the next arc.
Right.
Man, Trunks' intro in Dragon Ball Z is like the coolest thing to ever happen in a television show.
It's so good.
Or a comic book.
I love the pacing, the way that it's like, you know, I feel like a lot of narratives, not just television shows, but all kinds of narratives, have trouble with, you know, transitions are tough. I mean, first of all, it costs so much money to get all the various hormones, but like, you know, like, you know, how do you get from one arc to the next? How do you get from act 1 of your story to act 2 of your story, you know? And Dragon Ball is just like, what if this narrative arc ends with a brand new character showing up, murdering the bad guy, and explaining what the plot is now?
Mm-hmm.
It's so good.
And I just love how we spend like fucking 500 episodes on the fight with Frieza, and then it's Frieza's back, baby. But then Trunks shows up and just one-shots him, basically. It's the great. Best fucking thing.
Which is amazing dramatically because it shows the escalation that you always have to have in any what is the word for the kind of story that we're talking about here?
Power creep. Shonen battle manga.
That's the word, yeah, for shonen. It shows the necessary escalation of power that you have to have in a shonen narrative. You know, it's so good.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, this game probably could have learned a little bit from Dragon Ball.
Yeah. So Noel tells Sarah he can take her to see lightning. The B team shows up and gets aggro. Sarah tells him to back off and asks Noel to take her with him. He places her hand on the meteorite and it turns into a time gate. Noel says lightning is in a place called Valhalla, waiting on the other side. Sarah voiceovers a bit, and we see Noel explaining time travel to her and the B team. He says that when eras overlap, things end up in the wrong time, and they're called artifacts, with an E instead of an I, because this is a video game.
Now, he does not explain that it has an E instead of an I, so in casual conversation, I do worry about how these characters will know if you're talking about artifacts versus the normal word artifact, but it doesn't come up.
Yeah. Then he explains that artifacts are anachronisms. Things that don't belong in your
okay.
time. And I'm like, why don't we just call them anachronisms? That's what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, all these anachronisms, they should have called this game Anachronox.
Yeah. Anyway, if they can find an artifact, they can use it to open the gate and travel to Lightning's world. The next day, Sarah and Noel search for an artifact and talk along the way. It's vaguely mentioned that Sarah lost Snow as well, but we don't know what that means yet. Noel mentions some prophesied disaster, but says his memories are slipping away. Eventually, we see a flashback to Snow telling Sarah he believes her, that her sister's alive. He gives her his necklace and says when he comes back, it'll be with Lightning. Then there's no way she can say no to them getting married. That's the last time Sarah saw Snow. He was
Classic
the only
Snow.
one. Yep. He was the only one who believed. That's why she's been waiting here for him. Noel gets real weird and mean here and accuses her of sitting here doing nothing instead of going after Snow. Neither of them want to be apart, but here they are alone.
Like, buddy, you just met this girl. You don't know her or Snow. You don't know why she made the choices she made. It's very weird. You're just rolling up and being like, all right, here's my pamphlet about how everything you're doing is wrong. That's right, I'm talking about Trotskyists again.
If this guy knew Snow, he'd know he's not worth going after.
I actually like this point a lot because, like, that is the most Snow thing. It's like, oh yeah, like, there's a problem where your fiancé misses her sister who disappeared and no one believes her. You want to help. But in classic Snow fashion, the only way to help is leave her forever to go fix the problem. It's like, buddy, sometimes when you're in love with someone, they might need something besides you going and fixing the problem. They might want you to, like, be there for them because they love you. But he doesn't wait to resolve that tension. He's just like, all right, bye.
She'll be fine. She has LeBro and Huge
and her cat named Snow.
And her cat named Snow. Later, Sarah and Noel find Lightning's knife. We see a flashback to the end of the last game when Sarah and Dodge reunite with Snow and Saz, but Lightning isn't there. It's really neat how this FMV we see transitions seamlessly from being what we saw before to something different.
Yeah,
it's like same models, same shots. It's like, oh, they reused the FMV. They're just showing us the FMV again, but then it's different now, and it was really, really cool.
Yeah. Well, if I recall, very importantly, it's not a FMV, which means, this is the same game engine.
Oh, it actually is an FMV, and I only know that because I had a very weird technical time with this game. I was going to bring it up later. When I was fighting Chaos Bahamut, my game glitched out for a second. All of the audio cut out, and then the camera stopped moving and following them fighting along the thing. So they just ran off my screen and kept on going.
Oh my god.
And so I hit retry, and it took me back to the beginning of the battle so I could finish it, but all sound was cut off except for FMV sound. So all of these thingies had sound, so I know that they were FMVs and not an engine.
They look like
also,
they must have rendered them anyway.
Yeah. This scene is seen through like a haze. So that's why it might be harder to tell if it's an FMV or in-game graphics.
That's right. But I will say also a cool thing about this game, as we mentioned, it's got great music. So far, none of its soundtrack contains thematic, motific links to the previous game. They're not using the same music. The battle theme's not the same. It's really cool how it's just totally musical identity. You know, they could have just rested on the same basic themes again, but they don't, which makes this scene cool because it uses a track from FF13. It uses the piano version of Lightning's theme, and that's the first time we've heard that musical motif at all, and it's because they're just literally using the track from the previous game to show the theme from the previous game. It's good.
Yes, so Sarah and Dodge reunite with Snow and Saz, but then Sarah realizes that Lightning isn't there. Hope gives Sarah Lightning's knife, saying he found it at the base of the pillar. Snow says Lightning must be holding up Cocoon with Vanille and Fang. Sarah says Lightning was right there a second ago. She saw her. They talked. She gave them her blessing. Flashback, Sarah cries and falls to her knees. No one else remembered Lightning. Noel assures Sarah that her memories are the truth and that Lightning is still alive. They continue looking for the artifact. Eventually, they go back to Sarah's room, and there's a weird mirror in it that wasn't there before. A floating crystal comes out of it, which Noel identifies as an artifact. You might have thought an artifact would just be like an item, like a knife or...
Especially because they kept saying it's a thing that shouldn't be there. So yeah, it's subtle. It's something out of time. He should have just said, yeah, it's a weird fucked up crystal, man.
Yeah.
Although again,
I assume maybe the mirror...
like the crystals from the previous game. It's a different color. It's got a different geometry. Again, it is visually shown that we're not dealing with the same kind of weird crystal shit, even though we're still dealing with weird crystal shit.
I'm guessing maybe the mirror is the artifact, but then it generates a gaming abstraction.
No, I think the gaming abstraction is the artifact.
Yeah, whatever. Video games are stupid. Anyway, Noel identifies it as an artifact. He says they'll use it to open the gate, but senses that Sarah still doesn't trust him. He tells her to ask him anything. She asks what he wants. He says he wants a future with people in it. He lived at the end of days, the last child to be born. As he grew up, everyone he knew died until it was just him. It was too much, so he left. He went through a gate. In Valhalla, Lightning gave him hope. She told him the future can be changed, and he believes her. So that's a lot.
Yeah.
Sarah and Noel head for the gate. They share a goodbye with the B team. They activate the gate and are beamed away. We hear Lightning say she will continue fighting here at the end of the world. We briefly see Caius and Yule watching the scene from afar. Sarah and Noel float through some nonsense space, which Noel calls the Historia Crux, the crossroads of the time continuum, which they can use to travel to different times. Neat! The beginning of episode 2 is when they step into the future in the next spot on the timeline. So
yep,
this isn't a very dramatic point to stop, but this is where we're stopping.
I think it is. They've decided to go on their journey.
Yeah.
I suppose, yes.
Yeah. This game has a prologue, but it also has a forward. And both of these feel like prologues to the game starting in earnest next week.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My favorite book series, the Stormlight Archive, does the same thing, where he's like, I couldn't decide between which of these prologues to set it up, so I just put both of them, and I forget what he calls the second prologue, but you get two of them before the book starts, and it's really
prelude.
Good. It is the prelude.
Nice.
I don't know if you were just picking prologue synonyms or if you knew it, but that's exactly what it was.
I was making a Final Fantasy joke.
There it is. There we go.
There it is.
Nice work.
So, yeah, let's listen to some more Final Fantasy XIII-2 music, and then we'll talk about our memorable moments. What do you guys got?
Let me open them up on my Xbox, because of course I screenshot them.
I like how stupid Noel looks.
Not only does he look like a Kingdom Hearts cast, he doesn't even look like a Kingdom Hearts main character. He looks like a Kingdom Hearts some guy, which is funny considering he's the secondary protagonist of this game.
He wears fucking Jinko jeans.
Yeah, so I made the joke earlier. I was like, oh, if you press start, you can switch out people's outfits, and I recommend using Sarah's summoner outfit. It's supposed to be related to Yuna, but it looks like Kairi from Kingdom Hearts, and it's a really cool outfit, and I love it. I'm like, and then I said, I haven't looked at any of Noel's yet, but surely
Noel's are silly too.
I was like, surely his will be better than whatever it is he's wearing. But no, every single outfit he has the ability to wear, besides cosplaying as Ezio, are ridiculous. But so, I'm not going to do the whole game with Noel as Ezio. That's silly.
Here's the thing: this game rules, and I really like it. Most of my moms are going to be dunking on it. Okay, so first of all, actually, the first thing is not a dunk. Sarah has quite possibly the greatest tits I've ever seen in a video game. They're just really good. She looks really good in that outfit, and the titties are. If I go on too much, I'm gonna become a total skeeve. But I was pogging out. The way that her fit, like, I'm like, damn. As the thing with lesbians is, whenever someone talk, there's a combination of I want to fuck her and I want to be her. So like both, it's like, oh, titties, I like it when other girls are hot, but also it's like goals, right? It's like both of those feelings at the same time. The way the outfit fits, like, it's a very, very well designed character model, is what I'm saying. Good job to the character designers for making her look stupid hot. But specifically the tibbies. There's an art to it, and they nailed it. Anyway, other than that, that's the main one. I'll let y'all go, and then I gotta decide which ones I want to start with.
Related to Sarah, last game, I remember speaking on the fact that, like, she was cool and interesting, but I don't know how she was going to have a whole game be about her, because she kind of was not present for the whole first game. And already, right off the bat, she's a good protagonist, and I really like seeing the world through her eyes. And all of my fears were assuaged very quickly on being a Sarah game.
Yeah, I like just the concept of having the main character of the sequel be a relatively, like, she's really fucking important in Final Fantasy 13, but she is a minor character.
Yeah.
She's just like the damsel in distress, and not much more than that.
Yeah, it's cool to see the character who had to be sidelined in the previous game due to being in the form of a crystal. Now being someone we get to learn more about kind of in retrospectively. What the fuck am I looking at here, Sam?
That is one of Sarah's alternate outfits, which have more titty. So that was a gift for you.
That's stupid. Well, no, more titty isn't always best, Sam. You gotta have the proper amount of titty. That's just lewd. That is just inappropriate. I can't believe you said this is a children's podcast. No, it's not. Video games are for children. Anyway, I forgot where I was going with those words, because I'm just thinking about,
I find Sarah's outfit kind of funny. I find it funny that she gets new clothes through magic, and the significance of that has not been brought up yet.
Yeah, it's quite funny that or like if she even has like a new power of some kind. I don't even know. Anyway, I've got a few. Yeah, so this game has a very recurring theme of, as you can tell, it was probably written very quickly, and the characters just don't know what they do know or what they don't know, and they react in weird ways. So, first of all, when you first walk out of your house and you're in like deserted desert wasteland or whatever, you get a live trigger, and where she's like, "What is this? Where is this place?" And your options are, is everything I remember a lie? Or have I died? Or is this still a dream? Or is this the future? Now, here's the thing. Of those, I would say the two that actually are reasonable things that any human being would say would be, have I died? Or is this a dream? That's normal. But if I'm walking outside and all of a sudden there's a bunch of weird shit happening, I don't think is this the future? The only way she would know that is if she already knew that the game's theme was time travel, which she doesn't.
Maybe she just reads a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction and assumes that this is what the future would look like.
I took another screenshot of the live trigger when Noel sees Cocoon for the first time. Now that I think about that, actually, those 4 options all make pretty reasonable sense. Let's see. Oh, that one's actually a video. I took an accident. Here we go. Here's where it really gets bad. They had a lot of mechanical changes in this game, which again are really cool. I like that. I like that they did that. And one of them is that remember how before we were complaining that you couldn't like talk to NPCs, you just had to walk near them and they just had dialogue, except for very occasionally. In this game, that does still happen, but it is a lot more common that you just walk out to an NPC and click on them. Also in this game, you can jump.
There's a jump button.
Yeah.
So speaking of the jump button, the pipe you have to walk across to go to the place where all the monsters are, I sat there and bumped up against the blue dot like 50 times, thinking that my game was broken before I remembered I had a jump button this time around.
Amazing.
The jump button also reminds me, walking around and moving the camera in this game is not a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
It's
also
not
the game
great, but it's not a nightmare.
Well, also, yeah, I mean, the game has free camera movement that controls really well, and yeah, they really beefed up the engine. Okay. This is gonna sound like an insult, but it's not good or bad. It's just a statement of fact. If the previous game was like an extremely singular work, which I will say it is, even if I don't love it, like it's got a fucking thing going on. It is what it is. It is. And it's bold and coming at you, and you're gonna have to deal with it, buddy. This game feels like the Hollywood remake of a foreign film. It feels like they took FF13 and then decided, what if we made like a normal video game? And I use the word normal here in quotes, but I mostly mean like conceptually, like the fact that the plot gets going right away, and then there's very obvious exposition explaining what's happening. And like, here's what you're doing and why, and it's a lot more clear.
Imagine starting at the beginning of a story. Wild.
The fact that there's so many more mechanical changes. The fact that you can jump, the fact that your movement feels better. Enemies are random battles now instead of being on the field. But what happens is they will show up on the field, and then you run into them. But you can also run away from them. But like they randomly will appear on the field, and then you can choose whether or not to engage them. And then combine that with the fact that like now there's QTEs, now there's dialogue options, now there's clicking a button to talk to people, now there's collectibles, basically. Yeah, there's fragments are in many ways just collectibles, collect them all, right? In many ways it's like we took all these things that you expect from a more modern AAA video game and alternate costumes. For God's sake.
A mini-map that locks to north.
Yeah, so on one hand, it does take a bit of the character away, because it feels more like you're playing a normal video game instead of a weird work of art that kind of arrived from another dimension. But on the other hand, it's like you already did FF13, you know? Now you're just doing FF13 : the mainstream video game. Anyway, so and also the UI is quite a bit different. My girlfriend gave a lengthy exegesis on the game's UI, in about how like it looks a bit more down to earth, and less absurd. Like there's way less like crazy crystal graphics on all the UI. It's a lot more just like normal. And also, in the previous game, each character portrait existed in kind of its own separate zone, where they were each kind of like. Again, it was like 3 independent images that were separate from each other. And in this game, if you go into the menu, you see the character portraits of Sarah and Noel are like literally looking at each other, which represents that's a shift. Instead of it being a game about people who are estranged from each other, and both literally, narratively, mechanically, and emotionally, this game, it's about 2 friends going on an adventure together. It's very different. Also, it's like way more down to earth. You're in a town. I say down to earth, which is very funny considering everything that happened in this game. Anyway,
also it's funny considering that this game literally is taking place down on Earth, whereas the previous game took place up in the sky.
That is funny. So anyway, so one of the things that happens is when you're talking to the NPCs, at one point, McKee,
everyone's favorite character,
McKee is watching the Weird Little Rock, and he's like, "Yeah, ever since the meteorite fell, we've been seeing all kinds of strange phenomena." And that's a really weird thing to say because the meteorite fell earlier that day.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
It's really weird. Also, McKee immediately gives you the scene where he's like, yeah, so this must be like a time bubble, like where time is running in advance. Also, like, I guess, he calls them aberrations. And then Noel is like, so these areas are from different timelines, realities blending together? And I'm like, no, you have no way of knowing any of this. Why does McKee just know all of the game's lore? The only proper response would be, what the hell is going on? Why does it all look so weird? How come there's this weird bubble of energy and inside it things are different? Now, if he worded it like, man, this tree was a sapling this morning, but now it's a full-grown tree. I wonder if perhaps this bubble is some kind of time thing. You know, like if he said that, but instead he's just like, yeah, man, ever since that crystal fell, we've been having bubbles of accelerated time and multiple realities blending into our reality. It's like, did you do experiments to determine this?
If only this game had a character with advanced knowledge of time travel that could be the one delivering all this exposition and not fucking McKee's reject Digimon looking ass.
Yeah, so that's the main thing.
He looks like an early draft of Shulk.
Yeah.
That's the main thing that got me about this game. So much info is given to the player either via UI or via characters just spontaneously knowing about things that are in the game's UI or things that are in the game's design document. Like, even the fact that the game's about time travel. Like, Noel shouldn't have known that he's from the future. He should have just known that he's from some other place. Where's Lightning? I don't know. Some weird place that looked like a mix between the secret bonus ending cutscene of Kingdom Hearts 1, and also the fourth deepest, darkest, crumbling city level of the dream in Inception.
Yes.
Yeah, anyway, that's my main thing about this game.
Yeah. That scene with McKee was weird.
Yeah, so far, this game is good, and I really like it, but I really like it because of where it ended and where we're going. This first episode is a rough draft. It probably needed 3 or 4 times through it, but you can tell that they also wanted to get to the cool, what if everything you knew was fake time travel experiment.
They're really trying to get you to the real game, which is apparently the game's relatively non-linear. It's like, no, you can jump around in time at will. You can. It's great. It's even more than like Chrono Trigger. From the game's menu, it tells you can stop what you're doing and go back to the Crucius apparatus or whatever, literally at any time from the start menu. And when you go back to the time you were before you jumped, you will be in the exact spot you were standing before.
That's the power of the PlayStation 3 video game.
That's actually really... So apparently it gets like really broad and non-linear in its like, yeah, you jump over here and do something, you jump over here and do something. You make different timelines. Sometimes there's actually 2 different versions of the same location at the same time, based on something that happened in a previous time. I'm excited to play it, and yeah, the game was very clearly trying to, like, they were trying to address the fan complaint of the previous game, but it takes too long to get going, by being like, we're just gonna speed run you through to the good stuff, even if it makes no fucking sense.
And it really barely makes sense going through it. It's all good. It just doesn't make any sense, and it could have been a lot better. Like I
wouldn't have minded if it was slower. Like fun fact, me and Marta played a little bit of this game before. I forgot about the whole opening with Lightning. I thought the game opened with Sarah being in her room, being like everyone says Lightning's dead, but I don't remember it that way. I forgot about the whole opening thing, which I think I'm glad that it's there, but it sure is wild.
Imagine if this opening is everything real, I don't know what's going on, was as long as the Roxas part. And
yeah, which is a great segment of the video game.
Yes, the only good part of the Kingdom Hearts series.
Yeah, exactly.
And like, imagine if it didn't start with the voiceover, nobody remembers that Lightning is dead, and you just went for the whole Roxas portion being like, this isn't what fucking happened. And then Sarah reveals to Noel that she remembers what actually happened. And then you're like, oh shit, time to go play a fucking JRPG now.
Yeah, that's what makes Kingdom Hearts 2's opening so good. It's like, you play Kingdom Hearts 1, you're excited to play the sequel to it. And it's like, here's some fucking guy named Roxas in this town you never heard of. You are not going to understand how this has anything to do with what you were expecting to get out of this game for about 4 hours. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this game totally could have gone that route.
But I still like the prologue in episode 1 pretty good.
Yeah, it's still fun. I don't mind that we're at the good stuff now. At least we're at the good stuff now.
Yeah. I gotta say, I was pretty jarred when I opened up the equipment menu and I just saw the character model standing there. It wasn't like a close-up shot of the character that moves for a second, then freezes. There was just an in-game model just standing there in front of God and everyone.
I gotta say, okay, you know how Christine Love made that tweet about how, like, you hate when you're playing some kind of game that you think is fine, and then just when you least expect it, wham, they hit you with a Crystarium. I feel like this game, even though I already knew it had a Crystarium, when I opened up the Crystarium, they somehow managed to hit me with a Crystarium. Which is my stupid way of saying the Crystarium is even more terrifyingly insane in this game than it was in the previous game. It's actually way more esoteric and hard to understand.
Yeah.
It took me a while to figure out what's going on.
I might give an exegesis on it next week. So I don't have to do it this week. But yeah, I do understand it now, but it's way simpler and yet actually a lot weirder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that'll do it unless anybody has anything else to bring up. Cool. If you like what you heard today, you can come and check us out on the web at www.rpgbook.club, where you can donate to our Ko-Fi, help us keep the lights on, and unlock more cool long and or short games for us to play. We are... Did Carr pay for Lightning? I think he did. I don't remember. I think
Lightning Returns is paid for.
Yeah.
Oh, it is already? Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, Metal Gear Solid is at like 4%.
Yeah. So if you want us to have an even bigger backlog of these games, you can go and donate and help us make our way towards Metal Gear Solid. I will have to play that game on Baby Easy and probably with save states, because every time I've tried to play it recently, I have failed really bad. But
it's not an easy game.
Yeah, we will see how that goes. But if while you're there and you donate, you will also get access to Book Club no Kiseki, our longest of long casts, where me, Bernard, and a good friend of the podcast and our baby sweet boy, Matt, are playing through the entirety of the Trails series. We are just started with Kevin Game, and Kevin Game is good. And I'm super excited for all of those. So come.
That's Trails in the Sky, the third game of the Trails in the Sky.
Yes. It's Dragon Slayer 6, Legend of Heroes 6, Part 3, Trails in the Sky, the third, Kevin Game.
Yes.
That's a great... I'm glad you just said that sentence. I don't hate it. And I don't hate video games.
Yeah, lots of cool shit happening over there. And the most important thing is it has a link to our Discord where all of us are losers and we hang out all of the time. So if you want to come listen to us record these things,
we sure do.
Listen to us record them live or just post shitty memes. That's your ticket right there. But for RPG Book Club Longcasts, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
And I'm Maddie Grace Webbins.
Remember, folks, your sister is dead.
That's right.
I should go call my sister.
I'm not going to call my sister. I'm not dead to... My sister's not dead to me, but I might be dead to her, so.
Bye, everybody. Our top 5 was Pokemon, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Shit, yeah.
Cool.
Just say Charizard.
Charizard. It's a good top 5.
My top 5 are Bulbasaur, Ivysaur, Venusaur, Squirtle, and Wartortle.
Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, baby.
That reminds me of one of my favorite jokes that it's a tweet, but if enough time has passed that people have forgotten I've already made this joke, I'll just make it again. Where I'm like, all right, Star Wars movies ranked best to worst. 1, The Phantom Menace. 2, Attack of the Clones. 3, Revenge of the Sith. 4, A New Hope.
Yeah, for a good 2 years, you couldn't make that joke because Last Jedi, even as a joke,
exactly.
couldn't be the
I
worst.
was like, even as a bit, I will not say that The Last Jedi is the worst one. But now I can do the joke again.